Hello friends, today we are discussing 6th BA English paper Voices of Women question paper 2023. The first 2-mark question is, who was the first person to call Adichie a feminist? The first person to call Adichie a feminist was Okoloma. He was one of her greatest childhood friends. He lived in her street and looked after her like a big brother. Next question, what is the language of marriage? The language of marriage is one of ownership and not partnership. Many young Nigerian women are pressurized by their family and friends to get married and they are compelled to make wrong choices. By a certain age, if a woman is not married, it is considered as personal failure. Third question, what is the setting of Virginia Woolf's book A Room of One's Own? The setting of Virginia Woolf's book A Room of One's Own is the educational, social and financial disadvantages women have faced throughout history. The major argument is a woman must have money and a room of her own if she is to succeed as a writer. Fourth question, what image do you find in every Catholic home? In every Catholic home, you find a picture of Christ holding his bleeding heart in his hand. Fifth question, what does the poet mix in her drinks? In her drinks, the poet mixes the cool contempt of her beloved. It will be like ice making the drink bubble. Sixth question, how is Anactoria described? Anactoria is described as a beautiful woman like the Helen of Troy. The poet would be more interested to see her lovely step, her sparkling glance, and her face than gaze on all troops in Lydia in their chariots and glittering armor. Seventh question, what does Ines Hernandez Avila prefer to neon? The poet prefers natural light to neon. She wants to appear natural without too much makeup, which the magazine models recommend. Such makeup hides their real being. Eighth question, according to Adam, what cannot be demonstrated? According to Adam, God and the other cannot be demonstrated. The other stands for Satan. He said that what cannot be demonstrated doesn't exist. Ninth question, why was the protagonist in the story Preciousness scared of men? She was scared of men because she thought they might say something to her and they would look at her too long. She was 15 years old. Why did Myope feel days had never been as beautiful as these? Myope felt days had never been as beautiful as these because the air held a keenness that made her nose twitch. The harvesting of corn and cotton, peanuts and squash made each day a golden surprise. Who is a mulatto? A mulatto is a person of mixed white and black ancestry, especially a person with one white and one black parent. In the colonized countries, we find a lot of mulattoes as the white colonizers often had children from the local women. Fourteenth question, how does the baby of Leiloma die? The baby of Leiloma dies of lack of hunger and thirst. As Leiloma also had no nutritious food, her breasts had gone dry and so he could not even breastfeed her baby. 15th question, who commits suicide in the film Mustang? Eke, the third sister, commits suicide in the film. Her uncle sexually abuses her. She also has sexual contact with a boy in the car. Let's remember the five girls in the movie Mustang. Sonai, the oldest sister who sneaks out from the family prison occasionally to see her lover. Selma, she forced to marry a man she didn't like. Eke commits suicide. Her uncle sexually abuses her, also has a sexual contact with a boy in a car. Nar, she also forced to marry a man she didn't like, but she leaving the family prison with Lale and going to Istanbul. The fifth one, Lale. She is the protagonist, the youngest of in the five sisters. She loves football and learn driving. Uncle Errol and grandmother, the five orphan sisters under the care of their uncle and grandmother. Yasin, a truck driver. Lale learns driving from him. Teacher. Finally, Lale and Nur leaving the family prison and going to Istanbul, where they are cordially welcomed by their old teacher. 16th paragraph question. The relevance of the title Shakespeare's Sister. The title refers to a certain of Virginia Woolf's feminist essay, A Room of One's Own, in which she argues that if William Shakespeare had had a sister of equal genius, as a woman she would not have had the opportunity to make use of it. Woolf names this imaginary sister as Judith. Even if Judith were as intelligent, imaginative, and skilled to write, she could not have written the poems and plays that Shakespeare wrote just because she was a woman. Even if she wrote them, they would not be accepted by the society, which would brand them as the ravings of a crazy woman. Woolf says that women in those days were capable only of being mothers and housewives. Women were betrothed to any man of their parents' choice. The woman had no say even in her marriage. Thus, the title shows the plight of a woman during the time of Shakespeare. 17th question. How does Eunice D'Souza make the comparison through the imagery of the heart? Eunice D'Souza, who wrote the poem Because, was raised in a gone Catholic family. In every Catholic home, there will be a picture of Christ holding his bleeding heart in his hand. The pity to the Sacred Heart of Jesus is a common practice, especially in the Catholic families. The message the bleeding heart conveys is the great sacrifice Jesus made for the redemption of mankind. It was a great act of charity. The poet is trying to say that she too wants to do a charitable act by giving her heart to someone like a spare kidney. She wants to give her heart not to a friend but to an enemy so that her sacrifice may look even greater. Next question. What does the mixing a drink of stars mean? Mixing a drink of stars means she is making a cocktail for drinking. Just like grapes of different size and colors are squeezed to get their juice, which is fermented into wine. She will squeeze stars to make her drink. The stars are large and she will pierce them with colorful decorative needles. She will also pierce small stars which bring out the color maroon and crimson. Then there will be cool, quiet and green stars. So the juice from all these is mixed to get a fine cocktail. Cocktail is drunk by adding ice to make it cool. She will tear the stars out of the sky and squeeze them over an old silver cup. She will then pour the cold scorn of her beloved into it, so that her drink shall be bubbled with ice. Question. What kind of beauty standards do the fashion magazines impose? Fashion magazines like Cosmo, Vogue, and Mademoiselle impose many beauty standards. They do that to prevent models from body shaming. Body shaming is the act of making inappropriate and negative comments about another person's weight or size. Frequently, this is something that overweight people are subjected to, but there is an increasing trend in criticizing those who look too skinny. Body shaming is everywhere, so the models are to be ultra bright in their smile and so lovely in their complexion. Their confidence is based on someone else's fashion, and their eyelashes are darkened by mascaras hiding their weakness and their real being. They would need to dress right, speak right, laugh in just the right place, and dance in just the right way. These concepts of beauty these magazines impose are Eurocentered. Next question. Briefly elucidate the reference to Cain and Abel in the poem. Cain and Abel are two sons of Adam and Eve. Cain, the firstborn, was a farmer, and his brother Abel was a shepherd. The brothers made sacrifices to God. Cain brought fruits and such things from his garden. It seems he did not give the best things as his offering. Abel, his young brother, brought out the best lambs as his offering. God favored Abel's sacrifice, but he was not happy with Cain. This made Cain angry. God then asked Cain why he was angry. He advised him to make his offerings with good will so that they become acceptable to God. Cain then asked Abel to go with him into the field. When they reached the field, Cain murdered his brother because of jealousy. It was the first murder in the history of mankind. Sea as a symbol in The Awakening. In the novel The Awakening by Kate Chopin, the sea symbolizes freedom and escape. The sea can make us feel how vast and infinite the universe is, and in comparison, how small we are. When in the seawater, Edna is reminded of the depth of the universe and of her own position as a human being within that depth. The sounds of waves hitting the shore make Edna think of her sexuality and the need to satisfy it. She was not comfortable with the monotonous life of a wife and a mother. She feels relaxed when she is in the company of young people like Robert Lebrun or Alice Arobin. Water is associated with cleansing, baptism, and rebirth. The sea induces Edna to have a rebirth into her youth and its pleasures. The sea can also be a destroyer. Edna chooses to end her life in the sea. The sea can inspire you and also overwhelm you with the thought of nothingness. Edna feels lonely when Robert goes away from her life and she thinks it is good to die in the sea, in which she had moments of pleasure with her young lovers. Each individual is free to decide whether Edna's death was cowardly surrender or a liberating triumph. Analyze the scenes where Nokre goes to school. Nokre goes to school on the pretext of going to the Quran classes. Her father is a conservative who is against educating women. Nokre comes across different scenes where she goes to school. She sees many refugees looking for shelter. One day, searching for water after school, she comes across several truckloads of refugees returning from Pakistan and helps them resettle in the ruins she calls home. However, the number of refugees overwhelms the shelter where her family has been living and they are eventually forced out by several other families. They manage to find shelter in an abandoned airplane, but this too is eventually overcrowded by refugees. The scenes that she sees are that of ruin, poverty, and helplessness. It is interesting to see Nokre walking to school wearing white-heeled shoes, which is against the custom. She also befriends a Pakistani boy who helps her in different ways. What are the ways by which the family restricts the girls in the film? When the grandmother comes to know that the 5 girls mixed with boys and played with them some games at the beach while returning from school, she stops them from going to school. Their uncle Errol is also very angry with them. The grandmother, the uncle, and the aunt in the film restricts the girls in different ways. They are not allowed to go to school again. If they had to go out for some essential things like going to hospital, they were asked to wear drab and dull dresses to make them less attractive to men. They were not allowed to go and watch any football match, which Lale, the youngest of the girls, liked so much. They were forced to study cooking, cleaning, and sewing at home, and the teachers were their female relatives. Some of them, like Selma and Nur, were forced to marry men they did not like. The first essay question is: give a detailed account of the incidents Adichie narrates to depict gender inequality. In her famous essay, We Should All Be Feminists, Adichie narrates many incidents to depict gender inequality. When Adichie was in primary school, her teacher said that she would give a test and the highest scorer would be made the monitor. Class monitor had much power. He would write down the noisemakers and he would be given a cane to patrol the class. You were not to use it, only hold it. Adichie wanted that post very badly. She scored the highest. She was waiting her name to be announced as the monitor. But to her greatest disappointment, the teacher said the monitor has to be a boy. A boy had the second highest score and he was made the monitor. He was a simple and sweet boy who did not want to patrol the class with a cane. A family she knew has a son and daughter. Their age difference is just 1 year. They both are brilliant in school. When the boy is hungry, the parents tell the girl to go and cook noodles for the boy. Adichie thinks boys also should cook. There is another woman she knew who has the same degree and the same job as her husband. When they return home, she does most of the housework. Whenever the man changed the nappy of the child, she said thank you to him as if was not his job. Another American woman friend of Adichie has a highly paid job in advertising. Once in a meeting, she said she was slighted by her boss by ignoring her work while he praised the same kind of work if it came from a man. She wanted to speak up to challenge the boss, but instead she went to the bathroom and cried. She did not want to seem aggressive. Once she was with her friend Louise, when gave some money to the helper for helping to park her car. He looked at Louis and said, "Thank you, sir." Louis asked me why he was thanking him. Then he understood. The man believed that whatever money Adichie had came from Louis. On many occasions, Adichie had to take the help of her male friends to go into some hotels as single women entering hotels would be considered to be sex workers. Sappho's poetry juxtaposes the superiority of woman's beauty to that of man's chivalry. Explain. പുരുഷന്മാരുടെ ധീരതയേക്കാൾ കൂടുതൽ പ്രാധാന്യം സ്ത്രീയുടെ സൗന്ദര്യത്തിനാണെന്ന് എങ്ങനെയാണ് കവിതയിൽ സാഫോ കാണിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നത്? It is very true to say that Sappho's poetry juxtaposes the superiority of woman's beauty to that of man's chivalry. Sappho was a prolific poet. Her poetry was well known and greatly admired through much of antiquity, and she was among the canon of 9 lyric poets most highly esteemed by scholars of Hellenistic Alexandria. Sappho's poetry is still considered extraordinary, and her works continue to influence other writers. Beyond her poetry, she is well known as a symbol of love and desire between women, which now we call lesbianism. The English words sapphic and lesbian are derived from her own name and the name of her home island, Lesbos, respectively. Sapphic means relating to lesbians or lesbianism. We list her importance as a poet is confirmed from the earliest times. All interpretations of her work have been colored and influenced by discussions of her sexuality. We can see her lesbian tendencies in the poem, the Anactoria poem. In the poem, she has praised Anactoria in glowing terms. Anactoria is the poet's lover, but she is not present at the moment. Even then, the poet is thinking of Anactoria. The poet says she would be more interested to see her lovely step, her sparkling glance, and her face than gaze on all the troops in Lydia in their chariots and glittering armor. In all the epics, we see the fantastic and brave deeds of the hero. In Homer's Iliad, we read about some of the significant events of the final weeks of the Trojan War and the Greek siege of the city of Troy. We see the great chivalry of heroes like Paris, Agamemnon and Achilles. In Homer's other epic Odyssey, we have the adventures and wandering of the great hero Odysseus. In Paradise Lost, the Milton, there are immense actions involving God and Satan. In the Indian epic Ramayana, we have the brave deeds of Ram, his brother Lakshman, the Sri Lankan villain Ravana who abducts Sita, and Hanuman. In the other Indian epic Mahabharata, we have the great battle of the Pandavas and Kauravas, in which Lord Krishna himself becomes the charioteer of Arjuna. But all these chivalrous acts of men are seen as trivial compared to the beauty and charm of Anactoria, the poet's lover. The theme of female sexuality and body in the story, Preciousness. The main theme of the story, Preciousness by Clarice Lispector, is female sexuality and body. It presents the internal conflict of a 15-year-old schoolgirl. She considers it lucky and comfortable if no one looks at her during her daily travel to her school. The focus of the story is an affluent girl's awakening sense of sexuality. She seems to fear men and even her sexual development. The protagonist, who is a 15-year-old schoolgirl, is not beautiful, but she is strong. She suffers from some kind of inferiority complex. She wakes up early in the morning and opens her eyes. She gets up before everyone else. To reach school, she has to catch a bus and a tram. It takes 1 hour. This 1 hour was time for daydreaming. When she woke up, she would dress in a hurry. She tricked herself to believe she had no time for a shower. She would then drink the coffee the kitchen maid warmed up. She hardly took the bread and butter. She tucked the books under her arm and opened the door and went out into the frosty morning. She would no longer hurry. All this would happen if she were lucky enough for no one to look at her. In the bus, she would see many laborers, their lunchbox in their hands, their faces sleepy. They were not young men, but she was not willing to talk to anyone. She was afraid of even young men, even boys. When she was 10, a boy had thrown a dead rat at her. It was a disgusting experience. Even in the school, she did not talk to anybody. Then one day she was on her way to school. It was even colder, darker morning than the others. She shivered inside her sweater. The white hyacinths made the end of the street invisible. Everything was like cotton. One could not even hear the sound of a bus passing on the avenue. She was heading towards the unforeseeable part of the street. The houses were sleeping behind closed doors. The gardens were rigid with cold. She was walking all alone. Then suddenly she saw two young men approaching. She was terribly frightened. Her initial impulse was to retrace her steps and go back home until the two young men had passed. Then she thought, they are going to look at me. I know it. There is no one else for them to look at, and they are going to stare at me. In the end, we see at dinner time she asking her parents to get her new shoes as her shoes were making too much noise. She says a woman can't walk in wooden heels as they attract too much attention. She was so frantic and so noisy. Nobody had the nerve to deny her new shoes. She gets the new shoes, showing that she is no more a small girl but a woman with all the feelings that usually engender in her heart. The last essay question is തൊഴിൽ കേന്ദ്രത്തിലേക്കു is a creative expression of the melting pot of the plight of Nambudiri woman. Explain. നമ്പൂതിരി സ്ത്രീകളുടെ ദുരിത ജീവിതത്തെ തുറന്നു കാണിക്കുന്ന ഒന്നാണ് തൊഴിൽ കേന്ദ്രത്തിലേക്ക്. വിശദീകരിക്കുക. തൊഴിൽ കേന്ദ്രത്തിലേക്കു to the workplace was written to propagate the aims of the Andarjana Samajam, which worked for the welfare and progress of the Nambudiri woman who had to live the miserable life of a slave in their illams. They had no freedom at all. They could not even go out without a chaperone, a veil, and a marakuda. This drama drew its ideas from the real life experience of Kavungara Bhargavi, a 13-year-old inmate of an illam, whose marriage had been fixed to a very cruel Nambudiri. As an orphan, her affairs were decided by her uncle, who had decided to sell her off without offering her any dowry. Taking money from the groom, her uncle claimed that it was a marriage conducted without any money passing hands. Despite the protests of the teenager, she was forcefully married off and she spent her life in grief and mourning. When the news of her sad plight reached the outside world, the workers of the Andarjana Samajam rescued her. In the play തൊഴിൽ കേന്ദ്രത്തിലേക്കു, we see the atrocities committed against women by their husbands or by their greedy uncles. We see Devasena being sold by her uncle, the Appan Nambudiri, who is a reactionary. He pretends to be modern and a supporter of reforms, but inside he is a traditionalist who wants to keep the woman under strict control. In the character of Vakil also we find a cruel reactionary. We see how he torments his wife Devagi, who is modern girl who wants to serve the suffering sisters of her community. Vakil does not allow Devagi to see any man coming to their house. He does not like her singing. He does not like her social activities. To him, the workplace is nothing but a brothel, and the women who manage it and work there are all loose women. At the end, we see how strong and independent minded women like Parvati and Devagi rescue Devasena from being sold as a bride to some old man or crook in a faraway place. We see the defeat of reactionaries like Appanambudiri and Vakil before the determination and strength of Parvati, Devagi and Devasena. So we discussed all the questions in the question paper Voices of Women 2023. Let's discuss all the chapters and name of the authors. 2 essays are there. We Should All Be Feminists, written by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and Shakespeare's Sister, written by Virginia Woolf. Then we have 5 poems. Because Vintage to Anactoria in Lydia. Because is written by Eunice de Souza. Vintage is written by Amy Lowell. To Anactoria in Lydia, written by Sappho. And 6th one, To Other Women Who Were Ugly Ones, Ines Hernandez Avila. 7th, Eve to Her Daughters, Judith Wright. And there are 3 fictions. Preciousness, written by Clarice Lispector. The Flower, Alice Walker. Awakening, Kate Chopin. Then we have 1 drama and 2 films. Drama is Thozhil Kendrathilekku, To the Workplace, translated by Anjana Shankar S. Film At 5 in the Afternoon, directed by Samira Makmalwolf. Mustang, directed by Dennis Gams Erguvan. So all the best for your exams. Write well. Thank you for watching.